Hey guys, this is Hell Hades. This is a Raid Shadow Legends video, and today we are joined by a special guest. We have got HWZ in the house. Dude, how you doing?
I'm doing awesome, man. Thank you for having me. Definitely feel honored. I'm doing great, man. I feel pretty good.
Cool. Well, look, welcome along. Today we're going to be talking about Live Arena. HWZ, basically an arena god in this game. No, he's a plat pusher. He's got a lot of knowledge, and we want to talk about the best teams that you could be running, the type of comps you should be looking for, the must-ban champions in this game mode. So really do a bit of a deep dive in terms of what we've seen so far and how both, end game players could look at this, but also those players that are coming up that perhaps don't have every legendary under the sun. How do you focus on this game mode as well? So make sure you go and subscribe to HWZ. We're also doing a separate video on his channel where we call out a lot of the epics and rares, which might be more relevant to your accounts. I'll have that pinned down below, so go and check that one out as well. But let's get into this. I guess HWZ, before we get into it, like, how are you finding Live Arena? Is it hitting your expectations? Do you enjoy it?
I'm feeling pretty good about it, man. It gets the blood going in a similar way that the plat push goes. Time is ticking down. You want to get in as many fights as possible. You want to, try to push up, get some of those rewards. So I'm enjoying it. It is a much different style of play from raid, from what we're used to in raid. So I'm having fun at the moment. I'm pretty sure as I climb, I won't be having as much fun.
Yeah. What do you know what sort of win rate you've got out of interest? I'm just looking at mine here. I've got like a 70 odd percent.
Yeah,
Are you
I'm at exactly 70% as well.
are you? Yeah. Yeah. So it's
Yep.
obviously it's tough. Yeah. It's tough to win, but I gotta be honest, like, I'm really enjoying this game mode. And maybe it's better if you've got a stacked account and you're kind of more end game, because this feels way better to me than plat pushing. Like,
Hmm.
I'm not forced into that 30-minute window at like 8 a.m. on a Monday morning. I'm not like, this is when you have to do it. It's several times a day. Hopefully the time kind of things hit what you like, what you need. But when I see it popping up, I'm genuinely excited to do it. I'm like, for the first time in maybe 18 months, I reckon, I've got Raid back on my phone. Because I'm like, I don't always want to be at my PC. If I'm sitting there in front of the TV and Live Arena pops, I'm ready. I'm going to do a couple of battles. That's where I'm at. So yeah, I'm
Nice,
genuinely enjoying it. Um,
nice.
cool. Okay, so let's get into this then. I think before we talk about champions specifically, because I don't think champions, unless you're at the very end, highest level here, I don't think they're the be all and end all. I think actually the type of comps that you draft are probably more important than the champions that go into that comp. Do you agree with that?
Definitely, definitely.
So what are you looking for then? What's the kind of, you've got 5 spots to fill. What's kind of like, I don't know, the first two that you absolutely need to nail to get a comp running here?
So I think the first two, depending, because if you're picking two, then that means that you're going second, right? So if you're
Yeah.
going first, you can only pick one champion. So I would say the first two champions are generally going to be some sort of support or flex champion, just because if you go with a nuker, they're gonna know, who to ban, and like, this is different than plat, right? You're not going up against a defense, right? So you don't know whether your opponent is coming in on the offensive or the defensive. So you
Yeah.
want to kind of go with, you know, one or two champions that are going to be able to shine for you, whether your comp is offensive or defensive. So that's like whether you're going first, whether you plan on going second, whether you plan on like stalling them out a bit and then trying to win after they've used their ability. So I feel like those first two champions need to be champions that could shine for you, whether you had them on your offense or you put them in your defensive team in one of the other
Yeah.
arena modes for
And,
sure.
and so, for interesting point here, because this is quite important, I think, for Live Arena. Don't forget, guys, you're up against someone who is making decisions based on what they see you do. And if I think about my free to play, honestly, I draft the same 5 champions every time. The order of them depends on what I see someone else doing, but ultimately, I draft the same 5 because they're my best arena champions right now. But on my main, I've got a lot of options, and Just why would you say support over offense for the first drafts?
Well, you know, the support champions, obviously like flex champions versus your CC champion, people are going to be thinking about a way to counter that, right? So like Warlord, Yumiko, Mighty Yuko is a great one.
Yeah,
The champions like that, people are going to be looking to try to counter. Whereas like revivers, there's so many revivers you can use in the game, right? And there's only one way to really counter that, and that's with block revive. So it's
sure.
kind of safe if you're coming in with multiple revivers, like that's an easy pick, right? There aren't too many people who are bringing in 5 champions and they're not bringing at least one reviver. So it's kind of a safe bet to go. A reviver is pretty much always going to be used on both offense and defense. So kind of an easy throwaway pick to just get in there and get your mind right, see where your opponent is headed.
Yeah. Yeah, because I guess if you went in there, and this is what I was doing initially, by the way, I was making a lot of errors, but initially I was like, well, I want Rotus on my team. So Rotus was coming in as an early pick. But if you come in with both of your offense, I think that's easier to counter. That's easier to look at and be like, you know what? If someone's bringing a Rotus, if you've got it, I could bring a Harima or I could bring a ultimate Death Knight. Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're just like straight hard counters to that style of champion. And similarly, if you're just kind of like picking out your, let's say Trunda's your offense that you want to bring, then I could look at that and be thinking, well, I know you're bringing a big hit. You probably need to be a fast speed team. So instantly, I'm making like calculated decisions around what I think the rest of your comp's going to be by the type of nuker. There might be, you know what, you're bringing
Yep.
Trunda. I'm bringing Leo because
Yep.
all you're doing is making me stronger with your big smack. Yeah. So these type of decisions actually start to become, for me anyway, quite fun to see and start to kind of navigate in terms of how I play. So
Definitely.
yeah, I mean, if you're bringing a reviver potentially and support type champion, I guess let's just call out some of the best ones in the game for that type of style of role that you've seen in this kind of. I guess we'll start high end. Who would be your go-to supports revivers?
So definitely, Marishka is obviously number one.
Yeah,
Um, I don't have
I
her,
don't have
but
one, unfortunately.
obviously she is very versatile, different reviver because she doesn't have, revive as a skill per se, but she does revive the team in a way with her passive. You obviously
Yeah.
have Duchess, who is always going to be insane. You've got your Sifis, right? You've got um, there's so many options as far as like revivers. Mighty Yuko is even like a reviver, right? You know.
Yeah, I mean, just touching on that because I didn't have my Mighty Uko built out, and I've
Mhm.
got to say, on when I streamed live arena, people were saying, you definitely should get one done. This is probably now my first pick champion. Like Mighty Uko is crazy good, like crazy
Crazy.
good in this role, and
Yep.
yeah, I'm so pleased that people kind of were pushing me towards it because just such a versatile champion. There's so many teams that we're seeing at a high level that just got bazillion buffs. Yeah, they've got buffs coming out of their armpits,
Yep.
and then with a stun set as well. Particularly, it's just such a toxic champion to throw in there to try and just disrupt. It's just disrupting everything that's going on. Plus that revive, which also brings a block damage, so that whoever you're picking up, at least they're going to get a hit away. It just feels like such a good pick. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah,
and
and
then
then like decrease attack on the A1 is it's just
yeah,
a
it's disgusting. Yeah, it's like
full package kit. Full This
yeah,
guy has a full package kit.
yeah. And one of the other ones, which is I kind of like toggle between Necret and Warlord. For me, I don't have a Yumiko who would be probably an upgraded Warlord, honestly. But how do you feel about lockout versus protecting your kind of nukers?
Well, I think if I had to decide, I would choose to go with Necrit, right? Because obviously you could bring in a nuker that doesn't care about being locked out, and that would
Yeah,
be fine, which is, what I feel like a lot of my opponents are doing. I don't have a Necrit, so I have to
right.
go a different way with protecting my nuker. So I've, I've had to bring in Pytheon, who's another great reviver,
Sure.
in a bolster set, or other champions in bolster or champions in stone skin that can possibly revive my nuker if they die quickly. I'm bringing in multiple revivers just because I can't Necrit protect my nukers, but then you have, champions that are countering Necrit comps, like even Supremo Hang counters
Yeah,
Necrit pretty well,
for sure. Yeah, I'm finding that one out.
obviously.
A few of my losses are where they've let Necrit go through, and then Supreme Hain comes in as the last nuker. Like we said, like you pick the damage last, and they're just like, we don't care about Necrit. We're
Yep,
literally gonna one shot whoever Necrit's protecting, and then what you're doing after that. Um,
yep.
and one thing I've noticed as well, which I guess is I wasn't expecting, but basically because you've got to go with, if you're at high level, this is a couple of revivers and a couple of nukers, leaves you one spare flex spot. And that flex spot, generally, as we've said, is either a lockout champion or a protector of some sort. It's really not leaving any room for some of the maybe the plat type meta champions of old. Champions like Ramantu or
Mm,
even someone like Madame. Someone who's a buff stripper or Tathalia. Someone who's doing that kind of buff strip flex role. I'm not seeing them a lot because it doesn't feel like there's enough room. Are you finding that, or you sometimes you
that
kind of pulling them in?
is definitely tough. I did go up against one team with Ramontu, and that was actually authentic. He
Oh yeah,
picked Ramontu against me, which was interesting. But no, I'm not seeing them a lot. Just because like those champions rely on the speed tune so much in order, like a speed tune team in order to really come in and shine. Whereas, Live Arena has been nuts. But you get to ban a champion, and now you have to think about a comp that can be successful without being speed tuned, right? So you think about all of
yes,
these
yes,
things. Whereas like Mighty Yuko is a champion that could come in, still a bunch of buffs, still your stone skin or what have you, be able to survive long enough to, still CC you. So it's much different now. Ramontu does still have a lot of value. I feel like with the A1, he still comes in and brings a lot of value because he can reset the cooldown of, a champion on your team skills if he uses his A1 successfully. But no, I just feel like there's not a lot of room for those traditional CC champions that we used to, use a lot before polymorph came in.
yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah. And obviously that's something we've not even touched on, but yeah, that can be pretty damn annoying as well. Um,
Yeah.
and what do you think? I'm trying to think what even faction she's in here. Harima, where's Harima?
Harima Shadowkin.
Jalakin, that's it. Um, so we've not spoken about her because I feel like Harima potentially is that flex role, but also could be spoken about as a nuker, I guess. Depends on how she's built. She does do a lot of damage.
Mhm.
Do you have Harima? It's first question.
I I do have Harima.
Is she taking up a spot in your team, regularly?
She's in every team.
Yeah, man. Do you know what? I pulled the most shards I've ever pulled for a champion, specific for a champion. When we had that 10 times Harima during 2 times Ancients?
I
That
saw
weekend, man, I pulled
it.
so many shards. It was at least,
And then
I think it was 1,000 odd. Like, it was a lot.
and then Ash gets 2.
I
How
know,
you get
man. I was
2?
literally like, I pulled 16 legendaries that weekend. No Harima. Anyway, we you're like, seriously. Anyway, I really wanted this champion because I was keen on Live Arena, and she's a real challenge, right?
Oh, man.
She disrupts the meta big time in terms of nukers, and is
She does.
also pretty powerful herself.
She
Um,
does, yeah.
so, what type of role does she fill for you?
She's probably the strongest nuker on my account. So I have mine, in a lethal set
Yeah,
around, 7.3K defense, 300 crit damage.
damn.
And she's, like this is the same build I use for plat reset
Yeah,
pretty successfully on offense. Like she's just an amazing champion. She's gonna come in and do damage mitigation with the passive. she's versatile as a nuker. It's exactly what you want in a nuker for a live arena because she can do single target for you, she can do AoE for you, and there's
Yeah,
times where you're going to pretty much need both, right? So you definitely want champions, your nukers at least to in some way be able to do both roles, right? Like a single target champion can easily be countered, but someone who comes in and can do both, like, Harima, Taraz, they're going to be versatile for you just because, if someone's picking more too macabre, you don't want to touch them for a while. You want to let
yeah,
him
for sure.
sit
Yeah,
there and just sit until you kill everyone. Just let him sit. Don't even look at him. He's not even in the match. Just
yeah,
let him sit and then kill him later. And that's, what having champions that can do single target damage and then some AoE damage can do for you, is
yeah. Oh, you mentioned Taras there, and I mean, do you feel like this guy is overpowered in the game right now?
I think that he is a bit overpowered for sure. But you're gonna get that every once in a while. I can't, be mad about it because if I pulled him on my account, I wouldn't be
I'd be all
complaining.
over
And
it. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I mean, we'd be, so
yeah.
yeah, I feel
Yeah,
like he is overpowered, but that comes every once in a while. At one point, Trunda was significantly
yeah,
more overpowered than other champions.
for
Rhodos
sure.
was significantly overpowered than other champions. So we're gonna, year to year, we're gonna get this. We're gonna
Yeah.
get this.
So I guess Taras and Harim are both good nukers. Who else are your kind of top go-to nukers that you would use? Definitely for me, it's changed from what I might have used in Plat, so that's quite
hmm
interesting. But yeah, who's your kind of like must picks? And do you prefer single target or AOE? Where'd you go?
I prefer single target just because, like, I can go ahead and ban your UDK and then just deal with the rest of the RNG. So say,
Yeah,
obviously, you know, I'm picking a ton of single targets. People can, just bring UDK and easy counter. I ban the UDK. They're gonna have the teams they actually want more times than not, and it's me versus RNG at that point. But
sure.
I've tried to put together my teams in a way that eliminates as much RNG as possible. So, like, putting my sheep chant in lead. That way, when I'm going against
Yeah,
Taras, we can sheep him at the start, get a chance there, and then
nice.
gamble with the baby fears. It still has a 50% chance to
Yeah,
proc,
yeah.
but
So
we
annoying.
gamble with that.
I
But
tell you what, that fears thing. Like I knew he's a good champion until I did that plat reset a couple of weeks ago. The fears thing wasn't really on my radar. It wasn't really like, oh, by the way, Taras is going to fear a load of the meta.
at the
And
start,
I was just
yeah,
like, damn, like this guy is so annoying. Like, not only is he hitting really hard, and like
yeah.
if you think you've won a fight and then all of a sudden everyone's dead, but those fears at the start, man, it's so annoying.
Oh
Um,
yeah, it's unexpected too because it's like you think he's just a nuker.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, so my go-to pick at the moment has been Rotus the nerf. To like this guy was
Oh,
was was nerfed. He's still probably my best chance to win in a plat fight, and he's in basically my best gear. Well, not my best,
mine
gear, probably my
too.
second best gear, but yeah, pretty much up there as one of my best sets. Um,
Yeah, Rotos has pretty much been number one for me just because, everyone bans my Harima. Everyone who's seen my plat pushes, they know to just ban Harima.
yeah,
And people ban Harima in general. So Rotos has been number one for me for sure. Just because, like, dude, 2 turn cooldown to A2. He pops one extra turn and then he's turning the fight around.
yeah, yeah.
He's turning
I,
the fight around.
I guess if I see in Ultimate Death Knight and I want to ban someone else, then Turvold's my kind of go-to because I just think pretty hard counters. Ultimate Death Knight really actually just a fun champ to have. My one's
Yep.
pretty
Yep.
damn slow though. Actually, I might just this was a build I did for Plat push, but
hmm
I might just need to pick up the speed a bit um for live because I just feel like he's not getting enough chance to get a turn away, and you can't speed like you say you can't speed tune things as you want. So builds for like a live arena versus a Plat arena. Do you find that a lot of them you're kind of having to change up?
Yeah, it's a bit different. Like I feel like the nukers need to be significantly faster now, you know? I feel like speed teams are so unexpected in live arena. It's something that's been an unexpected thing that people have started to use now that we're not in like the first day one, day two anymore. I'm seeing more speed teams
Yeah,
just because so many in-game players had their accounts going slow and like you can ban a champion, right? So it's like are they bringing in 5 stone skin champions? Probably not. Probably at least one of those champions is not going to be in stone skin, but you could count on maybe one or two
maybe
of
one
them
or two.
being
Yeah,
one or
yeah,
two, right? And so you bring in a speed team, right? You bring in three people who do some sort of boosting, right? You bring in an arbiter, you bring in a Siphi, you bring in a even a Lysandra, right? And who's how many people bringing in torments to counter that? Like
yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah,
not many people. So you going with the team that you use for plat, you're gonna get you're gonna get nuked, right? Because they're gonna kill your nuker. Chances are, and if they just keep the nuker down, then
how can they
is it
win?
you?
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. How can you win? And
yeah,
Lydia is actually very, very strong in live arena for that, that aspect, right? With the block revive, right? Because it's
yeah,
like if you can't ever let your nuker take a turn, you're not gonna be able to win because they're gonna slowly, slowly work you down until you don't have any more, heals. You can't heal anymore. It's just over at that point.
but so for a Lydia in live arena, then are you building her? Because my one's built for like Doom Tower stuff at the minute. Are you building her with high accuracy to land stuff, or is she literally just in there to block revive? Is she just there for your passive?
I think well mine was actually built for Fire Knight and I haven't
Okay.
changed the build much at all. So I would definitely, just be bringing her in for the block revive and probably, you know, I would even bring her in like a bolster set, something that's going to help out the
Yeah,
team as well and just give her as much accuracy as I can, try to lock out somebody, get block
sure.
buffs up on somebody. I feel like that would, try to get the most out of her kit for sure cuz you're only going to get one time with that block revive depending on how long the fight is. So
Yeah,
try to maybe lock out the reviver if I can, depending on who the reviver is on the other team.
for sure.
Um,
Yeah, and I guess so. A couple of other champions that I've had to rebuild for this particular game mode in terms of nuke. I've got my Leo back up to a decent level in case I see just a lot of single target shenanigans or a big nuker coming in at me that can kind of get Leo to activate. Um,
mhm,
so I found him pretty effective. I actually rebuilt built out my Heffrack as well,
mhm.
but in stone skin and slow, just in case it looks like I am gonna, the whatever I'm doing, it looks like actually somebody's gonna get taken down, and then because you kind of need two, or you have to have two nukers in the team.
Yep,
I'm trying to flex like maybe a Rotus alongside a Heffrack, or just someone else, a different type of threat in the lineup. Um,
that
is
makes
there
sense.
any other kind of AOE nukers that you're looking towards?
I generally pick the exact same new like you said earlier, you going in with like pretty much a similar team, on your free to play. That's how I've had to do on my main account because
Okay,
I don't have a lot of nukers. I pretty much only have like Harima, Rotos. Obviously, I have Rhonda, but my Rhonda, I don't have like Necrit protection for her, which
yeah,
is,
this is the thing,
it
isn't it? If you can't guarantee a net crit, some of these nukers it's quite difficult to play with. Like,
difficult. Yep. Unless you
yeah,
want to gamble with speed, right? So
this is it.
unless you're confident in your speed, then
Yeah,
it's gonna be rough because once they start banning your boosters, then you know
yeah.
if
I
it's
was
not
having a lot of fun day one, honestly, with my Nuke Hetchy, but it's such a game. Like, basically, he's got to one shot the whole team. If I see like a full speed team, he's got to one shot everyone, or it wasn't enough. Yeah, it wasn't
Mhm.
enough damage, and it was a lot of fun. And I was one shotting everyone at times, but if you don't, it's a long time till he gets that big skill back.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. Okay, well let's move on. Let's move on to, I guess, who would be the must bans? Like when you're facing an opponent, who's like, right, that's going to be first on the list when I see it. Perhaps we go one each. Like, who's your first must ban?
Must ban for me first is probably gonna be Harima.
Arima, yeah. And I concur. And obviously, it always depends on what you draft and what they draft. Yeah. So there's always going to be a number of different answers depending on the situation. But
Yeah,
Harima, I totally agree. Taras for me is like get him out, get him off the board. Like he's
yeah.
ridiculous in terms of
I'm le
power.
I'm leaning towards that because yesterday I had so many fears proc on me, and it was annoying. And it's
Yeah,
literally like that broke the fight every time because it's like I'm getting the first turn, which is, essentially what you want. You wanna, even if you don't get all of the champions that you want in the selection, still just going first, knowing that you're faster helps in so many ways. And
sure.
if those fears proc is or he doesn't get sheep,
Yeah,
it's just, it kinda ruins the comps that I bring in. So definitely he's high on the ban list for me. Georgid, also very
Georgia.
high
Yeah,
on
we're
the
not even
ban
spoken
list.
about Georgia. Yeah, actually, I don't have him. And another crazy nuker, right?
Yeah, he's
What's he
high on
balance?
the ban list, man. Because once he starts popping off,
Yeah,
he he's got a extra turn mechanic in his kit as well, so it's like and he can
yeah.
place unkillable on himself. You gotta be very careful playing
Ignores your
around with
stone
Georgie.
skin stuff. Yeah, he's What's interesting is I don't own all these champions, and I guess you have to re-familiarize yourself with what everyone does again. Like I
Mm,
don't own Georges, so I knew that he had a good kit. I've played around with him on a test server, but then when I'm in live arena, I'm like, right, what's he do again? Like, and then when he's like going straight through my stone skin, you're like, that's what he's all about. He's he's just like popping off, taking people down. Definitely, and like you said earlier, like single target and an AoE, so he's got like a good flex bit of damage, bit like Supreme Elhain. Um,
mhm, mhm.
yeah, that's a good shout actually. I'm actually starting to steer towards, or I often will just ban the lockout. So if it's depending on what I've drafted, but Yumiko and Warlord both can win fights on their own just by if they're
Yep,
quick, they lock out your whole team. If, if
yep.
if especially if we find that all of a sudden they've got a bit of a speed team going. So if they're fast and they're locking out, then they just get back to that before you're getting any of your abilities back, and that is pretty much game over. Like
Yeah,
unless you've drafted to deal with it, that's pretty much an end of fight for me. So Yumiko's pretty much high up there.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I would agree. I would agree.
And
Mighty Yuko was up there for me as
yeah,
well.
Maduko was going to be another one that I spoke about. Yeah, so annoying.
Yeah.
So
Mighty Yuko is 100% up there for me. I'm scared of Turvolds.
yeah,
I'm real scared of Turvolds as well. A lot of the other nukers I'm not really
yeah.
scared
Do
of.
you tend to let nukers through and ban out support stroke revive type champions as a priority? Would you say?
I would 100% agree. Yes, I'm not that afraid of too many of the nukers because if I'm bringing in Harima, if they don't ban the Harima, then I can deal with the nukers. We're gonna do some damage mitigation on them.
Yeah,
Once she gets a turn, if they don't lock me out and I ban the lockout, then chances are I'm confident in winning there. Unless we get fears from Taras or whatever the comp is they've picked. But so
yeah,
banning
sure.
the support, banning the CC that's been the way to go for me. Just because those are the champions that make the most difference. Those are the champions that are going before the nukers. And if you build a fast nuker, your nukers could potentially cut in. So
Yeah. Well, I guess let's just finish off by perhaps rolling through a few epics that the wider player base can use if they don't have a load of these big legendaries we've spoken about. Because ultimately, like on the free to play, I've still got about 55% win rate, and
mhm,
sometimes you're going up against people like my main account at the start, but not all the time. You're starting to play as things start to filter up, and this will only get better over the next week or so. You'll start to play more and more people of your level. I think
mhm,
that's the way this is going to
mhm.
go down. So I guess when I'm drafting the free to play, I'm trying to do a similar style. So it's almost like 2 champions which will do damage because you have to have that. 2 champions which are gonna get the team moving. That's generally the style I'm having to go on the free to play, and then 1 support champion. And to give you a kind of feel for what I do, I'm actually running my High Cartoon for speed, my fastest champion on the free to play. I run Cornelia as well, who's also got a speed lead and is fast. So if High Cartoon's banned away, I've got someone else who's quick, who will just lock out the enemy. I'll sleep the whole enemy team. I've then got my 2 damage dealers, Rhonda and Elhain. So if one of them is banned, I've still got damage coming in. And then my 5th pick, I would say, is Stag Knight, who's my decreased defense type champion. So on my free to play, I'm a more conventional speed team, and that's doing decent work. So I don't know how you would look at that, but I'm almost drafting 2 for speed, 2 for damage, 1 for either decreased defense or flex. What's your view? Would you kind of do something similar, or would you still be looking at, revivers? I guess it depends what you got, but
Definitely something similar. I think in the early game, one of the stronger things you can do is like ally attack. So you've got Morog there, right? That epic, she was in, recent Fusion or so, right?
Yeah,
Fusion epic.
I think so. Yeah, she was. Yeah, she was. Yeah.
So she has ally attack, right? You can use ally attack with the block revive champ, and that's a decent way to go early game. Phoenix has
Yeah, I was going to call
block
out
revive on the
Phoenix.
A1.
Yeah,
He has,
and an
he has it
absolute
on the A1.
absurd amount of damage on an A1, right? This guy.
Yeah, 4.1 on the A1. So it's it's
Yeah,
actually crazy. And then he also has an AoE, the single target, 6.7. Like this dude has insane multipliers on his
yeah.
single
There's a
target
reason why he's
ability.
always looking so smug, isn't it? Like this guy, it goes under the radar. I think he even actually in very high level play, this guy might be, as long as you can keep him alive, like just one of the best. Like
Mhm.
if you're able to get a net crit through the door and you've got Phoenix, then all of a sudden you're block reviving the revivers or the damage or whatever. And like, what are you going to do about that? Like, what can they do about it? It's just,
They
yeah.
can't do anything but try to heal you to death.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. He's definitely like an under the radar top tier pick, I think.
hmm
And
Yeah, and
would you
obviously,
be looking to champions like, almost like these would have been a go-to for me if when I'm talking about, oh, I'm trying to build 3v3 teams on a free-to-play account or a newer account, mid-game account. Champions like Bogoth, Sandlash Survivor, Seeker, champions that are kind of like a bit of a flex pick, but just keep you in the fight.
100%. Sandlash Survivor is actually, I'm a huge fan. I was one of the champions that when I was pushing up into Gold 4 3v3,
Yeah,
Sandlash Survivor was one of the champions that really helped me to do it because, like I said, no neck crit, no, bolster wasn't a thing at the time.
sure.
And just I don't have a Duchess, so I need a way to stay alive. And I was running double shield, so I would bring in Sandlash, and I was using Brogni as well. And this is
Mm,
on my offense, with the Rotos. And
yeah,
so Sandlash Survivor, with the passive ability, also with the ability, on the A2 and the A1 with the provoke is also like really strong.
yeah,
Has a really strong kit. Um, and people normally are using her for like clan boss early game, right? But she is also really good in, arena, especially tag team arena where, people
yeah.
are gonna have their account spread out right across their 12 champions. So definitely a very strong pick.
And then when it comes to damage, if you've got and they're built out someone like a Magnar, just someone who does high damage but also has got high survivability. Because obviously, one of chances are what I'm seeing at a lower level, if I'm picking 2 Nukers, unlike high level play, one of the Nukers gets banned away.
Mhm.
They tend to leave all of the support, which I think is the wrong thing to do. I ban away the support, and I win a lot of my fights that I shouldn't win. I'm beating all legendary teams because I'm banning better than they're banning, basically. But they tend to ban away one of the nukers. So if you've got someone who's got high survivability as a nuker as well, does a hell of a lot of damage, doesn't need all of the setup because you don't guarantee you get your setup through the door. So someone like him can actually just Magnar can do a ton of work as an epic.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I agree. And I would also say, when thinking about gear in the early game and early mid game, right? Like a lot of people are going to be focusing on getting their champions as fast as possible. They're not gonna have a ton of Savage gear yet, so the
No,
nukers probably aren't gonna be that strong. So it's like
definitely
if you
true.
ban these supports, which most people have invested in because they're investing in these revivers, these support champions that are like carrying them to Dragon 20, carrying them through these dungeons or what have you. Most of the damage dealers that will be built on like early game accounts are going to be champions built for dungeons, not even necessarily champions built for arena, because a lot of people in the early game hate arena. So
Yeah,
they don't really focus on that. So I would say that's definitely a great strategy. Something I think could be really useful that you just pointed out for a lot of people in the beginning is like, hey, think about gear. Don't think about the champions when you go in for your champion selection. Think about what your opponent could potentially have. Are they actually going to have, max damage savage nukers coming
yeah,
in here?
definitely. Yeah, it's very
Like
unlikely. Like
it's very unlikely. Yeah.
it's unlikely that someone's going to be able to one shot your entire team if they're the same sort of level as you. Especially like if I think my free to play 100 odd days in, I'm not one shotting the entire team unless I've got my increased attack, decreased defenses on everybody, and I get my best crits I get. Like and everyone's kind of weakly built. Like that's the only way
Hmm.
it's happening.
Hmm.
And it's even harder to do that in live arena because there's a chance of your increased attack champion being banned away, the decreased defense champions being banned away. Like it's not happening. I'll tell you what, the ones I tend to lose are enemies that have got champions like Rector Draff in the mix, like a reviver plus that passive crazy healing going on. Champions that have got good revives like um, a Salah, like pretty much those epics that just focus on making you need to kill everybody twice. I even had a
Hmm.
massive struggle against a Doom Priest Seal combo because
Ooh.
they were both quite quick and they're just passive healing, passive healing. So my nukes are coming in. I'm like, yeah, half health them. They all have a turn. They're back to like 3/4 health. And I'm like, my next nuke's coming down. Like, now I've got to wait 4 turns for the nuke. I
Hmm.
haven't got the
Hmm.
damage to do it. So, some of these annoying type of just support, constant healing champions you're trying to wear them down, but they just keep going. They're like energy bunnies, they just keep bouncing the team back up. But yeah, now it's interesting. Look, we could probably talk for absolutely ages on this topic, and we're already done about 40 minutes. So I think we're gonna kind of close it off. But look, really, I really enjoyed the conversation, and I think this game mode's a lot of fun. And do you see yourself doing a lot of content on this type of stuff? Do you think?
Oh, definitely, man. Definitely. I think we're almost past the phase where people are coming out with new dungeon comps for the hard dungeon, and this is what's going on right now. So
Yeah,
I'll definitely be, trying to fine tune what I can use best on my account as I push up, because I'm gonna have to get creative. I don't have
yeah,
all of the meta champs, so I gotta get creative. I gotta figure out some things. I gotta, just try to do something different. And I think that's gonna make the difference because, I feel like those battles I do win are gonna be when I bring in some champions that people are not expecting. Because,
for sure.
we'll be a weekend in 2 days, and people will have seen a ton of different champions, right? Because we got guys that are doing, like, there's a guy who's already done 300 fights, right? So it, they've gotten used to seeing champions, what different comps can do. So it's like, okay, how do you beat this meta? You go find some champions that no one's using and try to make them viable in some way. Try to bring some sort of, variation to the dynamic of it. And
Yeah,
I think that's going to help a lot of people, stand out and make some progress there. So we'll
nice.
see how it
Well,
goes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, guys, look, make sure you go and subscribe to HWZ. I will put his channel link down below in a pinned comment. Dude, thank you so much for coming onto the channel. Really enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, man. Thank you for having me. Of course, I feel honored, and everything I shared here today comes from the minds of hundreds of players. I'm not just one guy who knows everything about Raid. Obviously, I'm a student of the game, and I'm
I think
you
that's
know
what
I'm a
we all are.
teacher, so I'm always asking people questions about this stuff. So
Brilliant. Thanks, man. Well, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. I've been Hell Hades. This is HWZ. I'll see you later.